Unfortunately, Instagram doesn't support automated captioning while we're talking. So what Katie just wrote, I don't know if everybody can see it yet or if you have to scroll, but she just wrote that if you're deaf or hard of hearing and want to submit a question while we're live, please send us an ear at the start of your question and we will type out the answer live. So hopefully people can see that. And then we'll add captions when we like post it officially.
Yeah, that should work.
Okay. All right, let's go to the questions.
Yeah. Hey.
Okay.
Question. Well, let's first introduce ourselves because we haven't like shown our faces and talked at the same time. People have like seen them separately. So I'll start. My name is Katie Nelson. I am the redhead of the podcast. I'm the one with spina bifida, and I use crutches to walk around or a chair if I need it. I currently live in Utah with my husband and 2 dogs, and I just graduated at UVU. I work at a radio station and a pizza place right now.
Yay.
Yeah.
I'm Serena. You said you're the redhead. I guess I'm the not completely Caucasian one.
I am completely Caucasian, so that's true.
I'm mixed. I have cataplexy and narcolepsy. I have my service dog. Oh, I don't want to show you my whole thing, my whole room, because it is really messy. But right now, oh, come here. Come say hi to the people. This is my service dog in training, Raul. Yes, good boy. And what else? Oh, and I have borderline personality disorder, possibly. I don't know. I'm neurodivergent in some way, shape, or form, and I'm still trying to figure that out. But yeah. And what am I doing right now? I'm finishing my master's degree, master's in fine arts of creative writing, and I don't know what I'm going to do afterwards. I might live in a van, or I might travel to Ukraine, or I don't know. I might apply for a PhD. I have no idea. Anyway,
those are a lot of diverse options, but either way, you're balling.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, don't ask me my relationship with balls.
Okay.
I'm talking about sports, Katie. Come on.
Right, the sports balls. I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Question number 1. We'll just do these questions, and just as a reminder, if you have any questions while we're live, just type them in the comments. Serena is going to be watching those, and we will get them as we see them. What advice would you give parents raising disabled children?
Am I supposed to answer first? Okay.
Okay.
I would say just start exploring and examining your internalized ableism. And really figuring out what that means and what that looks like in your life. Talk to adults who have the same disability or disabilities as your child. I mean, don't expect them to answer your questions just because, but like if you approach them in the right way, and you say like, hey, my child just got diagnosed with narcolepsy or cataplexy, like is it okay if I ask you a couple questions? And then they say, yeah, that'd be great, sure. And ask them like, what would you have wanted as support as a child, you know? And yeah, like stop trying to learn about the disability from people who don't have it, I guess. Like you can learn about it from books and blogs and all that other stuff, that like doesn't mean you have to constantly accost people in person who have that disability, but like the people who are experts are the people who have the disability. So, and then the last thing I was going to say is cultivate a healthy sense of differentiation. That is a fun word. Dr. Julie Hanks, she's on Instagram. We really like her. She's a psychotherapist in Utah. she's LDS, and she talks about this all the time about how families with higher senses of differentiation find it easier to be themselves without like feeling threatened by one another, if that makes sense. So if you cultivate that, then it's easier for you to realize that your child does not need to be or act the same way as you for them to be worthy of your love. Yeah. And for them to love you back, like you don't have to be exactly the same or approach things exactly the same in order to still be family. So
yeah,
that's my answer.
Yeah, I thought your answer was really complete. I would just say as well, whether you're diagnosed as a child or later on in life, when disability is new in your life, or if you receive an injury and become disabled, when disability is new in your life, there's a huge learning curve, and there's a ton of mixed emotions, a lot of time because of how different disability is and how disability is treated by society. A lot of times when diagnosis or injury happens and you become disabled or it's new to you, it's mostly negative feelings around it initially. And then time passes and you learn different things about how your body works and how your new life is like, what your new life is like. And I would just say, give so much grace during that period. Try to support them no matter what place they're in that moment. That'll come through in different ways for different people. I think when I was struggling with my perception of my disability when I was young, I held it in a lot. And I felt like I had to be positive about it. I have the gospel and I should be happy because I have the gospel. And I felt lucky to have the gospel and blessed. But I felt like I had to be brave and I had to fit into this little box that members wanted me to fit in to make my disability make sense in their heads. And that was really hard for me when I was a kid and even when I was a teenager. I felt that from when I was young. I felt the responsibility of representing disability and representing the gospel and what it should look like to a disabled person from when I was a kid. And that was hard. So I'd say, do your best to make a safe space and don't assume that, even if you have the gospel, things are still hard and that's fine. That's part of mortal life, whether you have a disability or neurodiversity or not. So, just do your best. That's really all you can do and learn along the way. And like Serena said, asking people who have the disability is really helpful because even doctors who specialize in a child's disability, most doctors have multiple specializations. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they know specifically a ton about very specific disability, even if it's especially if it's a rare disability that can be a real specialist who knows everything is actually harder to come by than you would think. So.
Yep. I feel like we could have a whole episode on just this topic.
That would be
wow.
Right? This is going to take a while, but these are such good questions.
Yeah, we want to get some more questions. So, let us know which of your questions are your favorites and what you want us to expound on in later bonus episodes. Why don't we, do you want to alternate between the questions that were asked previously and then live questions?
Yeah, are there live questions coming in?
Yes, there are.
Yeah, I can't see them. So
okay. Let's see. Okay. So one question is, how do we think modern bullying affects those with disabilities and mental illnesses, and what should be done about
it? Modern bullying meaning I can't talk. Meaning cyberbullying? Is that what do you mean by modern bullying?
What do you mean by that? Let's see what he says.
What's the username that's typing?
The Cultured Swine 1990. I know who that is.
That's such a good username. Wow.
Well, let's just try to answer it. I mean, personally, I mean, both of us have been out of like high school for a while now, for like 8 years. We're so old. we're no offense, people who are older than us. It's just like kind of a mind trip. Okay, yeah. Cyberbullying as well as in-person bullying. So I feel like bullying is really concentrated in adolescent years. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. I personally haven't seen a lot of bullying from strangers, more so just like misunderstanding from people around me. What do you think, Katie?
Well, in my knowledge of what bullying is today, it seems like it's gotten a lot darker, a lot more, I don't know, just a lot more hardcore. I faced a little bit of bullying in school, but I feel like overall people were really respectful and I was really lucky. I know that's not the case. I would say, I mean, from what I've learned from neurodivergent people, they make than even physically disabled people. It just kind of depends on where you are, culture is. Yeah. But I would just say, like, I think the gospel really helps with that. I believe the gospel does really good at teaching that every person that's on earth is a treasured child of God and that they all have a purpose in being here. And if we can emulate that and do our best to reach out to people who are even different from us, if we approach someone and our internalized ableism gets kind of nervous and we're like, I don't know, like, work past that. Try to be friends with people and be friendly and show love and grace to people. Of course, if you ever see ableism or we always say any kind of ism in real life, call it out. Don't speak up, because a lot of times if it's happening, if you're the target of it, it can be really hard to speak up for some people. Probably not Serena, but for some people, it can be really hard to speak up. So if you see it, like, don't hesitate to call it out. All we can do is do our best to watch out for people, and with that, if people do face it, that's my best answer. It's not perfect because the culture of bullying is really, I've heard it's really bad right now, like you said, especially with kids and teenagers, and that sucks.
For the record, it's not easy for me to speak up. I just get impatient. I've said this before. I just I don't know, I just lose my patience. But that doesn't mean I don't feel anxiety or fear about it, because I do. My heart definitely still pounds when I'm like, oh shit, oh crap, I need to say something about this. Also about bullying, I think one change that's happening nowadays versus back when we were in K through 12 education is people are starting to be more overt about it, or maybe the undertones of bullying are all these isms that we were talking about, right? Like ableism and racism and patriarchy, colonialism, etc. These are the roots of bullying. And now people are finally they don't have anything to hide behind anymore. Like Trump, not to get political, we're political, I'm sorry. Not sorry. But his presidency brought all that out into the open. And so I don't think there can be apolitical bullying. If you're a bully, then you are espousing these bigoted ideas that are harming marginalized people, and you're capitalizing on people's marginalization. Anyway, in order to make fun of them and make yourself feel superior.
Yeah. If any Republicans are watching this, just know that there's some politics mixed in with it, but I believe Trump transcends politics in how he bullied. Like, it wasn't about his beliefs in politics. It was about being cruel to people at certain points. It was about making fun of a disabled reporter. It was about him wanting to send people back to their countries when they were from our country. Like, it was about biases that he had that that were brought out and that he wasn't afraid to share, and it brought out the worst in people a lot of times. Sometimes the best in people, like people fighting against it, but it gave the right to people to show the worst in themselves. And that put politics aside, that's wrong. That's wrong. That culture is still, you can still see it in America today, and hopefully we can work past it as a country.
Okay, next question. Good answer, Katie. How has this podcast impacted your relationship with Mormonism?
I loved this question. So I think my answer is kind of, I feel like my relationship with the divine and with myself and with my scriptures has been strengthened like so much, and it's been so fun to dive in. I didn't realize the scriptures could be so applicable to me as a disabled woman. Like, I never saw all these connections before, and now I'm seeing them, and I think that's amazing. And in a way, it strengthens my membership in the church in a way, but also it makes me see even more how all these connections I'm like getting and I'm seeing and I'm thinking it's awesome. And then I'm seeing all the missed opportunities that the church is, I don't know if it's intentional or unintentional. Missed opportunities, misinterpretations or misrepresentations of disability. The church, we've seen it throughout time that the church is never untouched by culture. And when there's a culture of racism or a culture of ableism it's true that the church is an American church. When those cultures are in the society that the church was founded in, it will be seen in the church. And I believe as the church continues to be restored, those things will slowly disappear. That's my belief. So it's almost strengthened me in the idea of the future of the church more than in feeling good about where the current church is. Does that make sense? Which isn't upsetting to me. Like, I feel so much hope in that and so much power in that. I really do believe that the church is always being restored, and there's so many good things coming our way, and we're part of that. We have to speak up. We have to make our voices heard and point out when things are problematic and when things are biased in whatever way, to bring about the church that Christ wants on the earth. We want to be his people and how he wants us to be.
That's a really good answer.
It was a long answer.
It was amazing. I guess I feel like with this podcast, I found a way or a space where I feel comfortable engaging with the church, despite not believing the same way that I used to, like before. And when I say before, this was like months ago, like not a long time ago. Before I felt like, you guys can probably tell, pretty angry about things, and I just felt like I couldn't keep going to church, and it wasn't a safe place for me. And but doing the podcast allows me to interact with the roots of my spirituality, even as my spirituality grows beyond Mormonism, and I start to incorporate other spiritual practices into my personal devotion. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it kind of like there's a hawk outside my window. Holy shit, that thing's huge. Sorry. That was cool. That was really cool. If I could have shown you that without messing up the live, I would have. Big ass hawk. Okay. Excuse my language. I'm not. Guys, this is what you don't get because Katie edits the podcast and she tries really hard to make sure that I don't scare people away.
I'm telling Ryan, I'm like, this is going to be something fun about the live, that it's like all the in-between stuff that I do have to cut out because of time when we post episodes. So it's fun.
Wait, I actually wanted to, because we had a question earlier in the live stream that actually relates to kind of what I just mentioned. And Chelsea asked, can you please be more specific about making church a, quote, safe place for everyone, like really inclusive? Yeah, she continues to say that she agrees about the future, but I can't get myself to stop struggling with disappointments I see in the present. It is straining my relationship with the church though my testimony strengthens. Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, it's like a dual spirituality almost. Like you feel, I feel like at points, I've never said this before, but I'm going to be totally honest. At points, I feel like my tie to the church has almost been more nostalgic than anything. Like, I feel like that was what tied me to the church for a time, which is like not an easy place to be in. That's hard. It's hard when you feel like it's not a safe space. And like, it hurts me so bad that people feel that, because the gospel is supposed to be so much more. Like,
yeah,
Christ's people on the earth are supposed to be so much more. When we minister to each other, we're supposed to be a family, and that's not seen in every place in the church. And like, we're trying our best to make that safe space here. But it's hard when it's not in your local area, and not like, there's some wards that just like work and get it, and there's some wards that struggle with that and are not inclusive. And sorry, let me be more specific on safe space, what I think of that. One of my biggest things in feeling like church is a safe place is when you, we've talked about this a little bit before, when you ask questions in church, do you feel safe in asking those questions? Do you feel like you'll be respected and heard, and that people will honestly consider your question and not just immediately jump to like, oh, what did you say? Like freaking out or, being upset. And that people will respect everyone in their own, whatever place they are in their spirituality. I think most members will be shocked at how diverse our church is, the membership is in their spirituality and where they are. When we're taught like the 5-finger testimony, the things that you should believe, and then you go to, especially in adult Sunday school, you kind of go in and just assume everyone's in their same spot, and they're totally not. And that's fine. Awesome. That's what church is for. So that's the biggest thing for me in creating a safe space, is making sure that people do feel comfortable asking questions, and not, because that's where true growth is found, when we're able to lift each other up and find answers together. And for some reason, people fear doing that in a church setting, in a group setting. And, there's a lot of go into why, but
I think it's important to note, and Derek on Beyond the Block podcast, I'm pretty sure it was Derek, might have been James, I think it was Derek. He said that, actually, I'm not sure which of, anyway, one of them said that the prey, meaning the marginalized people, will never be safe at church as long as predators, the oppressors, are present. So what do we do with that? Like, the question arises, can you change predators into like normal herbivores? or do you kick them out, or do you create a new space? Like, that's where we're at right now. That's what we are trying to figure out. I feel like as a community, we're still like giving it one last go to try to change it. And I don't know if it's gonna work, and actually there's another question, and I'm gonna scroll down to that one, because
I was thinking of that one. Yeah.
The meat and potatoes one.
Oh no, the honest schism one.
But okay, let's do that and the meat and potatoes one. Wait, where did the schism one go? Do you want to read that? Do you have that?
Yeah. Do you ever feel like the LDS Church needs an honest schism? Schism is how to pronounce that, right?
And I wrote that my answer to that is, if I answer that honestly, I might get excommunicated. Trying to avoid excommunication, y'all. Because I personally, maybe I'm more cynical, but I don't know. I've lost my faith in people's ability to see other people's humanity. Like, that sounds really sad, but just the experiences from that I've been exposed to, that my friends who are Black, who are people of color, who are LGBTQ, who have disabilities, and who are neurodivergent, we just time and time again, just rotating hurt and pain and higher suicide rates and all this stuff because of their involvement at church. And yeah, so if it were up to me, I would say time's up. Like, we're gonna create a new church, but it's not up to me. I'm not the prophet. I cannot be the prophet yet because women still don't have the priesthood. Anyway, but so we're still trying to do that other path, right, of trying to change the predators into herbivores. And yeah, I guess, so do you want to read that question about bridging the gap, since I think it's relevant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let me say something really quick.
Okay.
I personally believe that there are core things of the church that have to be for this to be the restored church. We have to have, in my opinion, we have to have authority and ordinances. And I taught Sunday school today, and I thought of a third thing, but I'm only thinking of these two things right now. Wow, I'm totally blanking.
Revelation?
Yeah. Revelation is really...
I would say revelation.
Yeah. So those three things are crucial. And there's so many other things that the church has in place that could be tossed out and it would still be God's church. But people look at those things as so essential to the church and it wouldn't work without it, that it's kind of a hinderment at this point. So I do think that there are a lot of changes that could happen. And I think the prophet's starting to see that, like the leadership, there's been like the changes about witnesses, like,
yeah,
about like, is this actually a priesthood thing, or is it like anyone can do this? Oh yeah, it's not, opening up your mind to changes that seem so important, but aren't, changes that previously were seen as like big deal and sacred or a priesthood thing. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's opening up and changing, and it might be too slow moving for some people. And if leaving the church makes you safer and keeps you alive and keeps you like
happy,
more safe, happy, then maybe that's the best move for you at a certain point. That's so hard for me to say. Like, oh, I was like, that would, I think hearing myself saying that when I was a missionary before, I would be like, what are you doing? But now that I have a better understanding of what the church can be for some people, I get it. Like, it's such a hard thing. And it's our job, no matter where people are in their spirituality and their whatever they choose, to love people, because that's what the gospel is.
Yeah.
Okay. The meat and potatoes question,
which is relevant. It is.
Where is it? It's toward the bottom.
I'll read it. Okay. How do we bridge the gap between the meat and potatoes boomer-esque members and the new upcoming open-minded people in the church? Which is actually really interesting, because I just sent my little sister a video this morning about Gen Z and millennials, because she claims that I'm Gen Z or that she's millennial. And I'm like, no, I'm millennial and you're Gen Z. Anyway, but this is relevant to our other question, because the last question was about, is a schism needed? And and safe spaces, right? And I think, well, I don't know if I should say that. Like I said, personally, I won't read this verbatim because I'm not trying to scare people. Well, anyway, I kind of want to say it because I think it's funny. Other people might not think it's funny. I'm not going to say it. Anyway, sorry. Katie, do you know? Katie knows. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. Okay. Anyway, I'll move beyond that. I'll move beyond my terrible joke, which is not really joking, but you guys don't get it because I don't want to scare you away. So, anyway, I think in all seriousness, we, meaning modern generations, meaning the upcoming generation that has less power in the church because we're not as old, we haven't been as established and haven't had as many callings. We're more tech-minded, more community-minded, more justice and liberation-minded. I think we need to find ways to take power from the people who are withholding power and who are like hurting us and hurting people we care about. Like, they don't let us teach in Sunday school. Like, fine, make a podcast, you know. They don't let you serve a mission. Okay, like, let's get involved with your local community center or mutual aid, or there's tons of mutual aids out there in almost every city. Like, you know, like if we don't get stewardship over a small piece of geographic area in North America, no big deal. Like, we'll create our own space and we'll use the technology that we understand better than the boomers and make it available, make that safe space available and make it viral worldwide, you know? And I feel like that's kind of what we've been doing. That's what all these like new podcasts are doing. I would love to see more YouTube channels, you know, as all these Instagram accounts. I haven't been as much on TikTok. See, I am a millennial, Katrina. She's not even watching this, but later I'm going to show her that I just got involved in TikTok. So that proves I'm like a slow millennial. Anyway, but like, we can create our own digital spaces that are available worldwide and cater them to the needs of the marginalized. And we can expand them and connect them and make this intersectional space, create a church or a ward that's not bound by geographics, that's not bound by bigotry. Like, a great example of this is the Black LDS Legacy Conference. And I just actually attended yesterday. It was great. Like, we got to hear a bunch of really knowledgeable speakers talk about racism and how Black Lives Matter in the church, and the fact that it's an eternal truth, and the fact that President Dallin Oaks actually mentioned this at BYU, and just kind of people's reaction to that. But they it was basically like its own general conference, but centered around Black people and the experiences that they faced, you know. And it was amazing because, I don't know, I just felt like it was so much more enriching and way more safe for BIPOC church members to attend / engage with than General Conference itself. Like, General Conference, I had like I have anxiety attacks every General Conference. Like, I can barely sit in the room when General Conference is on because my skin just crawls. Like, I just get so angry. And when I'm angry, I can't walk. Okay, people, like, that's my cataplexy. Like, literally, I mean, I don't mind certain situations being emotional and being incapacitated, but like, I don't know. I don't want to be pissed off for no reason when I can't do anything about it. But like, the fact that what made it a safe space was the fact that at the Black LDS Legacy Conference is that the members listened and learned from Black people who were expressing themselves and opening up about these hard experiences, you know? And that's what we need. We need spaces where people who have experienced racism, ableism, misogyny. We need spaces that allow them to be vulnerable, allow us to be vulnerable and validate us, because you cannot find solutions. You cannot create better organizations until you work through the hard things. And we talked about this with conflict and like trying to avoid conflict. We talked about this in a previous episode. Anyway, so yeah, that's my answer to that question.
And that makes me think like, some people would be like, well, general conference has to happen and it's always going to happen. And I was thinking like, think about the face-to-face meetings they have with apostles. You know, they like pull one apostle aside and it's like, just for the youth or just for YSA. They just had one for primary kids. Yeah, just like, I mean, yesterday, it was like recently. And I was like, why don't they do that for marginalized members of the church?
Yeah.
It's so cool to have a face-to-face for disabled members. And anyone can join if they want to learn about disability, but it's like focused on mental health and physical health and disability and, you know, anything. And like with the gospel center to it. And like Jeffrey R. Hahn could lead it and it would be the best thing ever.
Holland, Uchtdorf. That's it.
Yeah. I like Bernard too. Like I feel like I know some people are iffy, but I feel like there's so many apostles.
He gets a trial membership.
There's some, I mean, Holland is like the one that's most known for like most of his talks are very, very heartfelt and consider mental health and are very respectful to mental health. And I'm not gonna assume a diagnosis for him, but it seems like it's something that's he considers a lot in his life, and it's something he's very, very educated about. So yeah, like that would just I feel like anytime I lodge a complaint against like church culture or how the church functions, people are like, well, like what's the answer? What needs to change? And I'm like, well, there's like a couple ideas like that, like intentionally creating space and putting these conversations in a spotlight, because otherwise they're just kind of like in the corners of the room and not really focused on. And the fact that, you know, it was like 2017 before the church mentioned the gospel stance on suicide. I think, was it 2017 or 2018? They finally made a statement that said like, hey, by the way, you're not going to hell if you commit suicide. It's gonna be okay if you have a family member. Like, that's not something you need to worry about. Like, how has the gospel been around like 200 years? And that was just mentioned like a couple years ago. Like, there's just so many things that the church could be a lot more clear on their stance on. And like, but it doesn't have to be like a statement. It can just be like, hey, this is part of the gospel too. This is a spot that everyone fits into, you know. I'm ranting.
No, I love when you rant. Yeah, I guess my add-on to that is, first of all, I love that idea. And our 5 viewers seem to like that idea too. At least one. Thanks, Chelsea. But I think we would have to do it very carefully, because I worry that it would just be a setup of just an opportunity for them to church leaders to inadvertently cause even more specific harm. You know, like if you have the wrong person talk about disability and they just go into all these ableist things, like that can be really harmful, you know.
Yeah.
So
you're so right.
It has to be a dialogue. Like it would have to be something where they actually like listened to us and validated us. A dialogue, and B, the right like general authority would have to do it. We couldn't just get like, oh, 'cause you made progress, bro, but like no.
It would be hard for some people. You're right. Yeah.
I need to plug my phone in 1 second.
Okay.
Now you get to see my ceiling.
That's a really, really good point. I'm glad you pointed that out. Having like people that are part of the marginalized community on the board and as speakers and stuff like that.
Yeah. See, look at all these great ideas. Why aren't we prophets? I think if I talk about excommunication like enough, then maybe it'll just be like a knock on wood thing. Then they'll think, oh, we can't excommunicate her now. Like, we can't give her what she expects. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I also don't know, Chelsea, if any church leaders attended the Black LDS conference. I do know that with the Zoom session, there were over 100 participants and a lot of people couldn't join via Zoom. And I think there was like, on the Facebook Live, there were like 580 plus people on the Facebook Live, and I was one of them. And so it's possible. If they did, I don't think they commented in the comment section, because I was pretty active in the comment section, because there was one troll I had no patience with. Anyway, moving on from that, but yeah, maybe we'll see. Maybe in general conference in a couple months, one of the authorities will mention being at the Black LDS conference. Yeah, that would be great. Okay, let's go back to some of these other questions. What does the church do well when it comes to disability, Katie?
Okay, so I think I'm curious, like, the person that asked this question, if they mean like church structure or profits or church culture.
Yeah, define church
different for all of those. And again, I'm not a very disabled person, and the longer we're doing this podcast, the more people are reaching out and telling us stories that I'm just like, I never thought of that, or thought that happened. So there's a lot of answers to this that could be, negative, positive, neutral. But in my life, the church, I feel like I've always been blessed with leaders that have been really loving. I was able to serve a mission probably specifically because of what my bishop wrote on my paperwork that I did, which I know I'm lucky, and there's a lot of people that don't get that opportunity regardless of what their bishop writes or whatever. I think the church, let me say the church as a whole seems to be a little bit more conscious of minorities. Perhaps they're more pushed into being more conscious, but it does look like the actual handbook is being more inclusive of, they just, right when we started the podcast, it was probably January or maybe December of last year that they about intellectual, or a couple different sections about intellectual disabilities in the church handbook. Before that, there were, and there still is, notes on physical disabilities in the handbook. It doesn't talk about neurodiversities in the handbook that I know of. I really think it maybe talks about mental health. It must, I feel like, to give like guidance on counsel, how bishops should counsel people with mental health.
There is a whole page dedicated to mental health on the church website, I think.
Yeah, that's true. The church website, like, they're growing their specific pages on different minority groups, which is really cool. Obviously, there are still some gaps, so it's important for us to recognize those and try to point those out. Serena and I are actually in touch with the person who works in the disability office of the church. There's like a specific office for disability for disabled members to refer to, I guess, if needed, or whoever to refer to if needed. And she seems pretty willing to communicate with us, which is really, really cool. It is hard that they're like, they have to go to a person in an office rather than just having a bunch of resources available. Like I mentioned on the block, like learning about the history of disabled people in the church, there's nowhere that you can find that anywhere that I've seen. So we're trying to find more information on that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think awareness, there's a lot of awareness that needs to grow, and willingness to be educated about experiences beyond their own and make information available. But there are things happening that I've seen even just super recently, and that's really cool.
Yeah, so I guess there are a few things, not a lot, and they're kind of hard to quantify. It could be worse. I guess that's our answer.
Anyway. We see things moving forward, but they're surprisingly slow.
Well,
slow.
I wouldn't say it's surprising, but
unsurprisingly slow.
Yeah.
So sad. I hope this whole thing isn't just like a big Debbie Downer.
No. Okay, let's answer this question, a more personal one. What has the pandemic been like for you or us? If that's a Debbie Downer, you don't have to answer it.
I was just gonna say, like, mine's a mix. I feel like
mine too.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I'm talking a lot. You can answer the question first.
Okay. Well, before the pandemic, so in like February, March of 2020, I was going social dancing. Yes, disabled people can dance. It's just sometimes different. Looks different, feels different, has different limits than non-disabled people. But anyway, I was going social dancing like 4 times a week. Well, I could go 5 or 6 times, but I usually only went 3 or 4. Only. Anyway, I went from that to like not having any physical intimacy for months on end. So that was hard for me because I don't know, one of my love languages is touch, and I used to get that from dancing, you know. And then all my favorite people like live thousands of miles away. Well, not all, but some select. All the guys I wanted to date live halfway across the world, okay, or halfway across the country. So that's nice. So I can't go visit them. But the lack of distractions is good because without a social life, I have much less drama. So I have less triggers for my borderline personality disorder, which is good. And I started a master's program. I got my puppy. Let's see if you can see him. What's he doing? Can you see him? He's sleeping. I got him. I started training him, and I wouldn't have had time to train him if I didn't have. It would have been a lot harder if the pandemic hadn't happened. Yeah, and I had some major breakthroughs with my spirituality, and I still somehow found lots of drama despite not having a social life. I don't know. God's just like the Serena sitcom never ends. Season 26 coming up. Anyway, that's how it's been for me. What about you, Katie?
I think so when it started, it was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? This is so wild. What? And then after a little bit, it was like, oh, wait, this is really hard, you know? My family did a really cute thing a couple months in where we did a family talent show on Marco Polo. That was really fun. And I think it was really, really cool my hours got cut at work, and I was online school, and my husband went remote at the same time. So we were both home a lot. And it was really cool to have more time to learn through 2020. I hope a lot of people took the opportunity to learn from all the social justice movements and civil rights movements that happened during 2020. Ryan and I literally, I mean, for me, almost like 8 or 9 hours a day. We were like reading articles and sending each other stuff and watching documentaries. Like I wish I had done it sooner, and I'm like disappointed in myself that it took this. I was aware, I believed in Black Lives Matter, and I was aware of some of the struggles before, but 2020 was just an opportunity to totally dive in and pull out everything that I had been taught that was wrong and unlearn and reteach myself. So that was like a huge gift that 2020. Yeah. And then also I started working at the radio station during 2020. It's my career goal, and it's happening, and I'm so happy about it.
Katie, you should share the link to the radio station so people can listen to you.
Oh yeah. If you want to listen to me,
to her DJ.
I'm a DJ for a radio station in Park City. I'm on. Oh, did I send it? Can you see it?
Yes, you did. kpcw.org.
Mm-hmm. Saturday. So I'm on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday nights, 7 to 10 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And you can just listen through the website or through your smart speaker. Anyway, if you want to listen to my voice more, because you can't get enough of my wonderful voice.
She has the best voice.
Yeah, it's fun. It's so fun. And it's like what I've been wanting to do forever. So it's really a dream come true. There were a lot of hard parts of 2020. There were days that were just, really hard, and it takes you, when you're like, you don't want to leave your bed and you're just like, just let me lay here forever. And it's just hard, I had those days too. And I think it's cool that a lot of people had those experiences. Like, I think people are being more honest about like having those hard times, and that's awesome. It helps you to not feel as alone in those things.
Let's see. We've been doing this for close to an hour. How many? Let's see. We talked about that one. We talked about. We're almost done. I would say we could finish out the questions.
Yeah,
we're almost done.
Let's
Don't
do
leave us yet. What?
Let's do the accessibility question. This one says, I serve with the young women. I wonder how activities can be more widely accessible, including girls' camp.
Mm-hmm. Oh, do you want me to answer?
Yeah, go ahead and you do your answer first.
Okay. So my answer is not to say that girls' camp wasn't accessible for me. I always really enjoyed girls' camp as much as I complained about not having boys around to flirt with. I think Sister Neely is watching this. She knows. Anyway, but like I always really enjoyed it. But at the same time, my disabilities hadn't developed yet. So I don't know if I would feel differently if they had developed earlier. I'll have to ask my sister because she has the same disability as me and she's still a teenager. But I would say just, and again, this is not to say that it doesn't already happen to an extent, but give the girls more autonomy and respect their decision to rest if they want to, not just need to, because your idea of what they need might be different from what they actually need. If they don't want to go on a hike and they just want to stay in the cabin and finish their craft, then let them, also I loved arts and crafts, and there's tons of ways to include more arts and crafts. I don't think they all have to be practical, and I don't think they all have to be girly. They can also be educational or spiritual, or exploring the nature around them and getting in touch with I don't know, not co-opting indigenous things, but if you're out in nature, the question that happened right before we logged off was, I serve with the young women. I wonder how activities can be more widely accessible, including girls' camp. And I was saying that and this doesn't mean that it isn't happening already in the church, but just give the girls more autonomy and respect their decision to rest if they want or need it. Yes, and if you are deaf or hard of hearing, Katie just said to put an ear in your question so that we can type it out and show it on the screen. Yeah, so give the girl, like, don't pressure them into participating if they don't want to. And like, get creative about arts and crafts, and like think about ways to incorporate diverse interests into arts and crafts too. So
like for me, I've been using walking aids since I was in 5th grade. So obviously through girls camp, I was on crutches. I tried to do one in a wheelchair. It was really hard. I think I did skip a girls camp because of a surgery, and I'm gonna tell on my sister because she can't get in trouble now. She snuck a cell phone into girls camp so she could every night. I'm sure the leaders maybe knew about it. I don't know, but you weren't supposed to have cell phones. But I got to call my sister every night, so I was so sad I couldn't go. Really bound to my bed at that time. But one thing is, like, I think if you look at someone with a disability and you assume things about them, you're going to make them miss out on a lot of things that they could participate in. So for me, looking at me, maybe it would be hard for me to get up on a stage and do a skit, but skits were like my favorite thing. The thespian inside of me would come out. Yes. It was so fun, and I would love it. I loved being in skits. I loved writing songs for when we would have competitions about I forget what it's called, but you'd like write a song for your cabin, and then like they'd give an award to the best song. I loved that. So yeah, my note would be intentional with inclusion and have a meeting beforehand with maybe the youth and their parent, and have a discussion about, like, what's your dream girls camp? What do you want to see? Like, what kind of things do you want there? Here's some ideas that we have. Do you think that would be, like, you'd be able to participate? And I would say make it a private meeting with a parent or a trusted guardian or adult. Because if you, like, try to do it in front of all the other young women, that would maybe seem inflating and be difficult. So yeah, that would be my note. I feel like if that was a conversation with my leader, the year I went in a chair or was more limited in my mobility, it would have been an easier time. It was the discussion we didn't think of having beforehand, and once I got there, it was really hard. So yeah. Oh, also I had to have a certain schedule with using the bathroom, like routines that we would have during the day that I felt like I was going to get in trouble when I left. And that was really hard too. So just having open communication with your leaders about your needs. And if you're a leader, making sure that happens and making sure the parents aware that you're going to take care of them. Be their person, because that can be really hard if you're away from your family and you have accommodations that are needed, and to feel guilty for needing them. Oh, there's so many hard things with that. Just be that person for the youth and make sure that they're taken care of.
Yeah. Wow, that was a great answer.
Thank you.
This is another one of those questions that I want to do a whole episode on, like girls camp and Trek and like scouts. Oh, I guess Trish doesn't do scouts anymore, but like just outdoor activities in general, because they're so integrated and pivotal to like American church summers. You know what I mean? Like,
you really like you're missing out if you don't go.
Yeah.
But also, like, if you think about the episode we did, the interview with Caesar, there are so many things that he can go to, and he was fine with it. But I'm sure that there were other ways that they could have been. Like, he's so smart, and he has so many awesome hobbies and interests. There's a lot of ways that, and I'm not saying they didn't include him. You know, he has really good stories about how they were inclusive. But just being intentional in how you include people, because accommodations for Katie are different than accommodations for Serena, are different than accommodations for Caesar and Brooke. So, yeah, that's honestly what to consider when you like are like, oh, how do I do it? Yeah.
Did you go on Trek?
I did, and they had a hand cart for me, and then one of our dear friends, Melissa, you know Melissa.
Yes.
She got injured on Trek.
Like literally injured, or like this, like in the story injured?
No, she got run over by one of the carts.
Oh my gosh.
Like, they're like hundreds of pounds that like run over her foot or something. Yeah, really bad. So she had to, and they like didn't send her home. I don't know. I don't know if that was like, I don't know the discussion behind that or what it went into that decision. I totally don't know, so I shouldn't judge. But they had I guess, injury or disability cart where people literally pulled us the whole way. And it was a mix of really, really an incredible experience in my life, and a mix of like a lot of guilt and a really hard thing in my life. So overall, I'm glad that I went, but Trek overall is really like, I mean, there are problems beyond disability with Trek, as we know. But yeah, Trek as a whole, I think that there are experiences that you can have that are similar to Trek without doing Trek. You know what I mean? And that would be more inclusive to people with disabilities. So yeah, that you're right. This is a whole nother thing that could be. So
and this was like one of the first things in like the first week of setting up our account. We shared some story, and some people shared some experiences about Trek that blew my mind. So we're definitely going to talk about Trek, girls camp, other activities in a bonus episode. But yeah, I guess that was the short answer. Someone submitted a question in the comments. So if someone claims to have a disability like per se narcolepsy, but they don't actually have a disability, should they be allowed to have disability access and opportunities or not?
Yes.
Katie,
that's
expound, because I know this person, and yeah, you answer the question. I want him to hear it from you.
I will happily answer the question. So I'm trying to think of it. I guess there's a lot of gaslighting with all the isms.
Can you define gaslighting in case people don't know?
Oh yeah. So gaslighting is when what's the best way to define it? Someone questions something that you know is true, and they make you, they try to change your reality in a way that makes it seem like you're the one that's misunderstanding when it is either a literal fact or a truth to you. Someone tries to change your opinion and manipulate you into believing that it's not true. Happens in most probably all abusive situations. There's gaslighting. So I don't want to be disrespectful to the person that asked this question, but I want to point out something problematic about the question. Sorry, I'm trying to be so respectful because this is it's an important question. It really, really is so important. But I want to be clear about what's going on when you ask this kind of question. So there's a lot of gaslighting in general with racism and colorism and homophobia and, you know, all the isms and prejudice that people can have. One of the biggest things in disability is not believing disabled people. And it's hard because you don't live inside of our bodies, especially with people who have invisible disabilities. If you would look at someone and not realize that they're disabled just by their outer appearance, they face a lot of gaslighting, notably medical gaslighting, which is heartbreaking because hello, that's like a huge need.
Like from the doctor, that's what you mean by medical gaslighting, right? The doctor not even believing it?
Yeah, and that unfortunately much more common than people believe. It's very, very common for disabled people to face medical gaslighting, which is heartbreaking because that's a really important need. So with how much this disability community faces gaslighting and constantly have to like prove our disabilities to able-bodied people, have to like stand up for ourselves situations. It takes a toll on disabled people, an unnecessary toll, when our lives are already filled. I mean, you know, time-wise, how much time does my disability take up in my day? Or if I wasn't disabled, I would have time to do other things. I can't even tell you. Like, there's emotional toll, like physical toll. There's so many tolls that a disability can take on a body, that not believing people when they have a disability, whether or not they have a disability, it's not your place. That's the end thing. When there's a giant group of people that need access and need accommodations, and you're worried about one person who might be faking it, think about how that affects this giant group of people that do need access. If you're concerned about figuring out like all these people that might be faking it, which, how rare is that going to be? It's going to be so rare that someone's faking it. It affects the people who do need access. So I would say blanket response is treat everyone like they're telling the truth, because mostly they are, and you don't understand what's going on in their bodies or in their minds. Yeah, I could go further into that question, but I feel like that's the answer that I'm able to give right now.
Yeah, and Alec, and to anybody else who wants more about this, we actually talked about this quite a bit, I would say, in episode 2, Visions, Validation, and Darkness. And you can listen to it, or you can read the entire transcript, or do both of those simultaneously, as my dad likes to do. On our website, it's wholyhumanpodcast.com. Just click on episodes and then scroll down to episode 2, and it's right there. And yeah, we talk about that and how that relates to the service dog and ESA issue. Let's see what Chelsea said. A quote I love: perspective is reality. I heard it in college and it changed the trajectory of my life. Yeah, when you look at something from someone else's perspective, you see things that you would have never thought of, you know? Like, yeah, even just with me and Katie, like, I learned things from her that I would have never thought of. She learns things from me, and we learn things from the people that we've been interviewing, from Caesar, from Brooke, you know? So it really, you'd never know what you don't know until you know that you don't know it. But yeah, anyway, let's see. Okay, any more questions we have from Advance? What does the church do well? Pandemic.
The
American one?
Oh, I was going to say, what are your top 3 coping skills to use when you're feeling isolated or lonely?
Okay. Are you? What?
I really like your answer. I'm a big fan.
Where did I put it? Oh, wait, I can't find the question.
It's on the top of page 2.
Page 2?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I said, so my coping skills are chocolate, the right amount of darkness in my chocolate. It has to be a specific percentage. Can't be too bitter, but don't give me the crappy milk chocolate Hershey's either. Okay, so chocolate, wallowing in said isolation, loneliness, sadness, which I did quite a bit this last week because my best friend left the country. One of my best friends left the country, and I don't know when I'll ever see him again. Anyway, so I wallow in it, and I have to put the right music on to sufficiently wallow, because I have to create a mood for my wallowing, because you have to. And I know I'm saying this like kind of jokingly, but like,
I was gonna say, yeah.
I really do believe that the quickest way to move past what some people consider negative feelings, and this is someone who has struggled with mental health and negative feelings all her life, is to embrace it and open yourself up to it and to just let yourself feel it. Because if you don't, if you run away from it, then it's going to catch up to you and you're going to boil over or have a meltdown at a time where it might be more costly to you, and that's happened to me, in, like, I talked about this in our interview with Brooke, where I had a meltdown in a Target, anyway. So, and then another thing that I think is that I like to do is I like to stimulate my curiosity while I'm wallowing. So, and I don't know how else to put this, but like, I do think that curiosity can be it's like a secret hack that people don't really talk about a lot when it comes to mental health. If you are curious about something, sometimes that can pull you away from your depression or your loneliness. Maybe not take it away, but it just gives you something else to be interested in and live for, right? Mm-hmm. Because the problem with depression is you feel like nothing matters anymore, right? You feel like nothing matters and you don't matter and it's never going to get better. And even though that's not true, like, things are constantly changing, it's so hard to feel that. So being like engaging your mind in something that is curious to you, that you're curious about, is really good. So I have my favorite, so I speak Russian and I'm constantly trying to improve my Russian language skills. So this past week I was just like blasting my Russian rap and just trying to translate it, because, well, what happened, and I'm kind of mad about this, but also kind of happy, because I left a comment. Okay, my favorite Russian music artist released a new song, and I'm not good enough in Russian yet to like understand the rapping right off the bat without any lyrics to follow along. And I was like, what is he saying? I love this song. What is he saying? I don't know what he's saying. So I was like, I'm gonna figure it out. So I like opened a Google Doc, and even in the middle of my like tissues and chocolate and eating my hot Cheetos so that I don't feel like super depressed because my best friend just left the country, like, I was like, I'm gonna figure out what he's saying. So I just like listened to the music like on end for like hours, just like pausing and rewinding each phrase. So I'm like, I'm gonna type this shit out and I'm gonna figure out these words. And then I like put it in Google Translate. Then I was like, ooh, I'm like cracking a code, Anyway, so like that's some of the things I do, and also other things that are a little bit more taboo, which we talked about coping mechanisms that are quote unquote taboo in was it our first episode or
first or second? It was first or second, yeah.
Yeah, in our first or second episode. So anyway, what about you?
So yeah, I mean, I love the answers that at first seem silly, but it kind of just gives you insight into who the person is. Like my favorite, I have music that it's like, I have a must playlist if I'm feeling alone. It's either like, fun fact about me, I know a couple raps and I'm like pretty good at them. I cannot freestyle like at all. And I'm sure like me saying I'm pretty good at it, if you saw it in real life, I'm sure it would actually be embarrassing. But it's fun for me. Like I love hearing a song and like feeling like I know all the words and I'm so proud of myself. Music is like really big for me. So either that or songs that make me more sad, like somehow that comforts me because I feel understood.
It's validation. Someone else is feeling the same way you do, so you feel less lonely as a human. Sorry, continue.
One of my favorite things I've ever done when I'm really sad is I drank a really cold Pepsi in a really hot shower.
In the shower?
In the shower. Ryan was like, this is the grossest thing you've ever done. And I was like, this is so great. I loved it. I was like sitting on the floor in the shower and drinking Pepsi and just like laying in the hot water. It was awesome. I definitely recommend it next time we're kind of down. So just like, you just got to date yourself, treat yourself, just like, it's okay to turn inward and do something for yourself if you're feeling isolated. because it can be fun. Like, that's like so weird that I did that. And I probably shouldn't have told you people. Look at me different now. But it was awesome. I loved it. So yeah, just take care of yourself. And of course, reach out to the people that you trust and that you know. And something really helpful for me is if someone texts me, because my mental health has been up and down in 2020, especially in 2020, but on and off since high school. It's helpful for me if someone's having a hard time and they text me and they say something like, do you have the space to have a rough conversation right now, or to talk about something that's hard in my day? If I have the space, and like the mental space, I mean, an emotional space to do it, I'm so happy to do it. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if I barely know you. I'm so happy to be that for someone. But if I don't have the mental or emotional space, I can't do it. And that doesn't mean that I don't love people and don't want to help people. It just means that you have to be able to for a day and have to be able to, do everything that you need to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't be that for everyone, and that's okay. So have a list of people in your mind that you want to be able to send that text to, and include me if you need to. I will totally do it for you. Send us an Instagram message. And if the people can write back, awesome. And if not, have a couple things in your back pocket that make you happy, and know yourself and treat yourself a little bit. Do something for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think prefacing that text, if you just text someone just a random thing, and you're a little afraid to mention that you've been going through a tough time, maybe they do have space for you, but they don't know because you didn't mention it, versus maybe they don't have space, but then you ask, but then you just throw it on them without warning. That, both of those things can be really harmful. So you can, if you do what Katie suggests and just send the text, be upfront and be like, hey, I'm going through something hard. I was wondering, do you have some time and emotional space to talk about it with me? Then that solves both of those problems. Then they know that you're going through a hard time, and B, then if they have the space, then they can decide to help you. How did you learn to help? Oh,
I want to speak to that. So I would also recommend, there's some happy gospel things that help me sometimes. There's times where I am really upset and I say a prayer and it calms me. There's times where I say a prayer and it doesn't help me. So there are worldly, earthly things that can help, and there are spiritual things that can help. And try a mix of things, and don't be upset or guilty or embarrassed or sad if spiritual things don't work for you, because sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's a progress and you have to keep trying at them. It really depends on what's life.
Yeah.
And
we have a question from Lax of Love. How did you learn how to put boundaries up like that? I have such a hard time saying no to people. Yeah, boundaries are something I worked on a lot in 2020. They are hard because I have a tendency to, I don't know. I think in the church, church culture is not very good about boundaries and consent in general. And so
absolutely not. That's not something you have to tiptoe around. That is people joke about it. They're like hiding from the bishop if the bishop's calling me on a Monday night, and whatever. It's a joke, but it's
or
it's totally.
People talk about how you should never give up if someone says no to your invitation to come to church. Anyway, but yeah, so boundaries, we're not the best with respecting people's boundaries, and enforcing our own boundaries, B, in the church. So I think that's something that a lot of church members struggle with and have to learn how to cope with. Again, Dr. Julie Hanks, I love her. She talks a lot about boundaries on her Instagram and on her podcast. Personally, how did I learn how to put boundaries up? Lots of pain, lots of crying, lots of feeling guilty and like a shit person, because if only I could help that person, then I could make them better, right? But I mean, I don't know, and I still feel guilty about this now, even with some of the boundaries I set up like last year. I feel like I don't know, I feel a little bit regretful towards some of them, because I'm like, if I hadn't done that, maybe this person wouldn't have gone through such a hard thing, you know, but I don't know that for sure. Maybe they still would have gone through that hard thing, and I just wouldn't have been emotionally prepared to and capable of helping them at this point in my life, you know, because I set up those boundaries and I felt really guilty and sad and felt like I was cutting off a part of myself last year. I took time for myself. I was able to heal myself in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to. And because of that, I was able to be there for that specific person that I put boundaries on last year. I was able to be there for him, like literally just a couple of weeks ago, you know, and yeah, and I'm still, like I said, we're all so hard when you grow up in this church environment to have correct boundaries, but yeah, that's all the answer I have.
I just thought, do you remember that conference talk that was like, if you're on an airplane and they give you instructions on what to do in an emergency and they drop the air masks, you put yours on first and then you put on the person next to you, if it's like a child or if they need. The same can be said for boundaries. Like, I can help you and put your mask on if my mask, if in my emotions, or I have to take care of that first before I can help you. And that, in that sense, boundaries come from a place of love. Like, I want to give more of myself. To be able to do that, I have to have myself locked down a safe space where I can't myself.
Yeah.
I think like it's so hard to like have that conversation because it comes off like I want to cut you out of my life, you're too much for me, or a burden. But adding that into the conversation, saying like it's almost like it's not you, it's me conversation.
Yeah.
That's what boundaries are about. It's about making sure you're okay so you can be safe to help other people. And if people don't respect your boundaries, like maybe, I mean, I personally, maybe someone could disagree with, I would say give people time, because where people set boundaries can be kind of shocking. Like, you don't want to come off as a burden to people who need to set like that.
Yeah.
If you give time and they keep disrespecting your boundaries, like you have to take note of that. And even though it's so hard, it's important to notice those things and to take those things into account on how this person is affecting your life and how you function as a human with that person in your life.
Yeah. Just remember, and I know this is way easier said than done, to love yourself the same way that you're loving other people, you know, like, yeah. Anyway, just look at yourself like you're a small child that you want to protect, you know, like view your sense of self as this wounded child and tend to them first before you try and go around fixing everybody else. Because then you'll be able to recover and A, feel better about yourself, because that's the goal. And B, then if you want to, you can help other people. Mm-hmm. And Lacks of Love says, thank you. You're welcome. We're not experts, but we're able to share our experiences. So
yeah, and we're trying to learn so much. We follow a lot of accounts on Holy Human. Mm-hmm. If you want a recommendation of accounts to follow, like look at who we follow. There's accounts out there that we're learning a lot from on how make sure you're in a good spot with your mental health, how to pride in yourself as a disabled person or a neuro person. If you want to learn, or if you're an able-bodied person, you want more about specific experiences, there's so many good accounts there. And yeah, Dr. Julie Hanks will say her name over and over and over. Follow her account, no matter who you are, what's going on in your life. She's very helpful too.
Ah, my dog! Raul, what are you doing? He wants to go outside, so.
Okay. We're pretty much done though, right?
I think so. Hi, honey. Hi, kitty. Well, you're not a kitty. I called him a kitty. I misspecied him. Not misgendered. I misspecied him. Hi. I had a cat growing up. So.
Let's say one more short, 2-sentence answer to one more
Yes.
question. What is something that members can do now to be more inclusive of disabilities? We mentioned this a little bit, but what would your short and sweet answer be?
My short and sweet answer would be follow disability hashtags like hashtag ableism, hashtag disability advocacy, something like that, and just start learning from us and our experiences. Did I write something else on there? I think I did.
Look at ableism and disability rights as just as valid as women's rights, POC and indigenous rights, and LGBTQ rights. Civil rights are human rights.
Yep. That's my short and sweet answer.
Yep. Amen. I would say always look to the individual and try to see their need and communicate with them. Don't assume.
Yeah. Don't
Okay.
assume things. Don't be a donkey.
Don't be a donkey. Okay.
I'm trying to filter myself, Katie, so you have to do less
Great.
editing.
I love these new filler words that were coming.
All right. Well, thank you for joining our Q&A. We want to do more of these. Turns out we take a long time to answer questions. So if you want your questions at the forefront, please contribute to our Patreon. We have like different levels. You can even just do like $3 a month, like the price of a hot chocolate, not a coffee. Cheaper than a hot chocolate, to be honest. And that really helps us because we spend a lot of time on this. And then we will make sure that we answer your questions first in our next Q&A. And we're going to try to do them like monthly. So I feel bad for people that are joining right now, but we're ending now. So yeah, patreon.com/wholyhuman, WHOLYHUMAN. And let's see, let me just drop the link really quick.
Yeah, and for the people that are joining right now, we are going to post this on our Instagram page. Access this later with auto-generated captions.
Yes. Yep, we'll add the captions. All right, well, have a blessed Sunday. And the reason I still have the Christmas tree up is because it's a live tree and it's an evergreen, so it never dies. And also there is still snow in Moscow, so I keep my Christmas lights up until the snow melts, and that is the answer because someone asked that. And I have not read that book, Chelsea. Send us a DM about it because I would like to hear more about it. Okay, bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.